If the news has felt like too much lately, too long, too loud, too overwhelming, this is your sign to do it differently this new year. I'm Erica Mandy, host of the Newsworthy podcast. Each weekday, I break down the day's top stories in less than 15 minutes, giving you the facts, multiple perspectives, and even some lighter conversation starters, so you're not bogged down by arguing pundits or alarmist clickbait. It's a simple, efficient way to stay informed, feel confident, and move on with your day. Search The Newsworthy wherever you're listening to this podcast and follow or subscribe to The Newsworthy today.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
You're listening to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, the show that proves no one stumbles upon success ever. With your host, Lou Need. Every Mondays and Thursdays, we deliver cold hard evidence behind the power of a robust morning routine. Get ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lou Need, and today I am super excited to have a very good guest to the show today, Erik Hatterscheidt. Now, he is the founder of Freshline Moto Club, the world's only brotherhood uniting entrepreneurial men through extreme motorcycle expeditions and humanitarian mission. Way to combine the two, right? That is like a rare and unique thing to do, and that is the niche, and that is the combo, and he is on a mission to bring brothers together, create accountability, brotherhood, legacy, and then most of all, adventure. Who doesn't like a motorcycle adventure, right? So I'm really excited to have Erik on the show today. So with no further ado, Erik, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. Pleasure to be here. Honor to be here.
Yes, it's my honor as well. As I was saying, it's really unique to see the niche of what you have, because when we think about motorcycles and we think about, I actually had my license and loved riding motorcycles. You think also of like rugged and mean and Harley Davidson, right? So what you're doing is quite unique, and the humanitarian piece of it. Let's enlighten us. How did you came up with that? What's your journey here?
It's a unique one. And it wasn't something that was planned for me. So in my case, there's a long backstory, so we'll try and keep it short. The short version of this is I grew up on a small wilderness resort in British Columbia, Canada. And I took over that resort from my parents in my early 20s. I didn't realize how much responsibility and also how isolating that experience would be, being a business owner, just kind of being thrown into the business owner seat. I mean, watch my parents kind of execute for years, but then getting put in that position and wanting it, there's a lot more responsibility that gets thrown on your shoulders than you see when you look from the outside. And if anybody in your show, I don't know if anybody can maybe relate to this, but if you're running a business and you just feel the weight on your shoulders of responsibility and also not always knowing how you're going to deal with the next challenge that you've got coming up, how are you going to make that next payroll? How are you going to bring in the income that's needed to cover all of the bills, all of the expenses? How are you going to deal with this management issue with an employee that you've got? All of these aspects that come with running a business. And then not to mention, great, now if you have money, what's the vision? How are you going to take this and where are those resources allocated? So having that on my plate and trying to face it all alone was something that became a real issue for me. It came to a point where I actually started drinking excessively just to try to escape the responsibility. And that was my way of dealing with it for almost a year. And it came to the point where I realized I'm feeling alone. I'm feeling isolated, both physically because it's a wilderness resort, but more importantly, I'm feeling isolated just in terms of being able to interact with other people who are facing these same issues. And so that led to a point where again, backstory behind all this, but I reached out to a group of guys I didn't even know that were running luxury resorts. And I had to reach out to them a number of times to just say, will somebody be willing to talk to me? And eventually one of those guys did. They reached back and said, hey, listen, I'll give you 10 minutes to go through some of what you're dealing with. And that became a situation where I very quickly was just asking him, hey, what's the next step? I just need some direction on where I'm going here. And I went and executed that. And then I came back and let him know, hey, here's what I did. And he kind of fostered the next conversation. That became a mentor to me for the next couple of years. But more importantly, he also brought me into a group of guys who were facing immense amounts of responsibility on their shoulders, far more than I was. These are like multi-million dollar resorts, luxury resorts that these guys were running, nowhere near the cabins around a lake that I was running in my little corner of the world, which is why they kind of didn't have the time of day for me at first. So I promise this would be short. How that segues into what we're doing with the motorcycle club. That experience for me was, and is still a transformative and life-changing experience in allowing a group of guys to actually help you on your path, on your journey. And the motorcycle thing happened by accident. Jordan is a guy I've known since the 7th grade. He's my best friend. And we decided on a whim to just explore the jungles of Guatemala on motorcycles. And we enjoyed it so much, we decided to invite a bunch of friends to come and explore those jungles with us. And none of those friends actually could make it. They all backed out. But we put a call out, and a bunch of other guys that had the time and capacity to go showed up. And so there was a bunch of strangers to us, friends of friends, sitting around a fire that we found ourselves with in Guatemala. And we did that night after night. And that experience organically showed us that those guys had also immense amounts of responsibility on their shoulders. They also felt very isolated. And they also felt like they didn't have the opportunity to share everything that they were dealing with mentally and emotionally with anyone. And so we just decided to follow up with those guys after that expedition, see how life was going. And that became something that became a weekly call. And that's something that we're doing to this day. We have a few calls a week for the members that are in the club. And we went from those initial 8 of us all together to now we're almost at 300.
Yeah. And growing, right? And growing.
Oh, yeah.
So what I find interesting about Freshline is men asking for guidance. Men never really, it's hard for men to ask for help. And for you to initially reach out and says, hey, I'm buried here. Like, I don't know what the next step is. I need guidance. And that's important to highlight when that does take place, how it kind of shifts everything for you. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, it very much did for me. So, I mean, I mentioned before, I had a problem with drinking. That problem became something that was no longer an issue once I felt supported and once I felt like I had a direction and there was some noticeable improvement in my life and living conditions because that group of guys was holding me accountable. And so in this, there is a challenge for men to just open up to anyone. And that's understandable because they are the protectors, they are providers. And some of that, unfortunately, the reality is some of that comes with status and saying like, well, you get certain benefits if your perceived status is higher. And so guys will not open up because if they do, then they might not receive those same benefits and they won't do it in a public setting. What we found out organically was if you can get a guy in the middle of nowhere with no cell service and is on a completely different mission in a different environment, the walls start to come down, especially if you initiate that. And so once the walls start to come down, the great irony in this is that there are so many parts of their lives that are hurting because they haven't been able to share. Yeah. And on the other side of this is this group of guys who say, that's okay. Like, it's okay to have flaws. It's okay to have made mistakes. It's okay to have screwed up things in your life. We've all done it. That's totally okay. Because we care about you, we're going to check in on you, but we're also going to hold you to a standard that's higher from here moving forward. And that improves relationships for the guys in the club thereafter, because now we're holding them accountable to showing up as a better husband, father, business leader. Basically a huge tenet of what we've got here is how do we improve their leadership capabilities, leading themselves first, but then once that's established, there's foundations there, then how do we make sure that they're leading others effectively, starting with their family? If the family relationship's not good, you can have the biggest business in the world. And guess what? I promise you, any guy that's got issues with their family, they're unfulfilled no matter what size their business is. And so we focus on that as like, hey, if you got to get, there's an order here we'll walk with you. We'll hold you through that. And we want to see you succeed. And we've done that quite a number of times. But let's focus on that before we start looking at, how do I just make more money? Because a lot of these guys are saying, if I make more money, maybe I'll be loved. And that's not the way it works.
Yeah, I like the approach to it because you're looking at the family dynamic, fixing that, building the healthy relationship there. Then everything else becomes a byproduct, is what I'm hearing, right? Like then you'll be clear. You'll have clarity to make the right business decisions. You'll have clarity to be present, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. I mean, business is relationship. And I think that's a lot of guys, but they're doing it in a different way. There's just a formality to it that you can leverage a lot of the skills you already have if you're running a business or if you're high level managing. you can leverage a lot of those skills in different ways in a family setting, but you have to be shown what are the subtleties are and where the approaches are. And also just hear from a million other guys. There's so many points in my life that I feel so blessed that have gone well because I'm learning from guys that are years ahead of me and have figured out a few things themselves. So we are not proposing that we have all the answers in some kind of curriculum. We're saying this is a group of mentors that are here and we're all agreed that we can all be a little bit better, and let's hold each other to that.
Yeah. And the family, I like to say that the family unit is the first real organization you're part of. It's the first business, the organization, because you said it is a relationship. It's the first one that you're part of. And so if you learn to navigate that space, the difference is, and build a thriving relationship, a family dynamic, then that will transcend to other areas of your life. And and then that leads into a legacy, right? Because then you're building legacy from that, because then you're teaching your son how to be a healthy man, and then so on and so forth. And so the legacy builds on. And I know legacy is very important to you. So tell us what it means to you.
For me, it might be a little bit different. From a personal legacy, I've made this a public statement within the club many times. I fully anticipate and I'm very okay with being forgotten on a personal level. People will forget me, forget my name, and that's okay. And that's good. And that's the right way that the world's going to work. Where I would like legacy to take hold is the framework and the principles that we've put together within the club. I would like that to sustain, because we've seen how much that can impact guys' lives. To just say, Freshline itself, it literally means jumping into a different path. In the motorcycle world, if you're following a line and you get stuck in a rut, you look for a new line, and hence Freshline. And so for us, it's saying, hey, there's a way in this world where you can have a great business, you can go on amazing adventures, and you can still show up and be an incredible father, an incredible business leader, an incredible husband. You can have all of that, and we're providing the environment for that to be a reality. And so that's the legacy I'm looking at, is I'm very okay with being forgotten, but if what we're doing here, one of our core tenets in the club is leave it better. If what we're doing here leaves our members better and leaves the world better as a result, and that continues on, that's the legacy that I'm very much hoping will continue on well beyond my name ever being remembered.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, to just take yourself out of the equation altogether and look at the bigger picture. Let's talk about the some of the adventures. What really happens in the club? There's the mentorship component to it, and it's really good to have, because you can learn from somebody who's lived 10 years. It doesn't have to take you 10 years to learn the same lessons, right? So that's why that coaching, that mentorship comes in, and that's pivotal for a club such as yours.
Yeah, our club is a little bit unique in a sense that, most adventure motorcycle, because that's where the field that we're in. Most adventure motorcycle clubs is as long as you show up, you're in the club. In our case, we run a 2-week training program, 1 to 2 week training program that we're now calling the Crucible. And we bring guys in, we teach them expedition skills, but a big part of what we're looking at is the character of the man that's there with us and their ego. And if they can't let their ego go, and they're in a spot where they're not open to feedback and they're not open to being a team player, then they actually never make it past that step. And then from there, if their character is not an issue, then we can start looking at how we work with them on expeditions and teams. But more importantly, the process from there goes from, yes, you'll get placed in expedition teams. For most guys, that's once, maybe twice a year that they go on an expedition. What we say is, okay, that's cool. That's a couple of weeks out of the year. There's still 50 weeks left. And that's where we're meeting online on a regular basis each week and talking about our lives. We meet in small groups. So the club, there's one big club meeting each week, every 2 weeks, sorry. And then there's small group meetings where guys are meeting in groups of about 5, and utilizing the framework there to just dig deep what's going on in their lives, what are the challenges that they're facing, what are the wins they can celebrate together. But then through that also, there's a lot of global small gatherings, get-togethers everywhere. So we can go, I could travel all over the globe, and no matter where I'm traveling, there's probably a Freshline event in that region somewhere. And so you're able to get together with members physically, but you're also able to, you have your guys that you know in your small group weekly as well, that you're meeting with and going through life with and setting goals. And again, those are primarily leadership related. And so looking at how do I show up as a better leader, but that also, intentional or not, that leads to desirable outcomes for a lot of the guys.
Yes. And please tell me, you take road trips, you get on a bike and you take the scenic route and you go riding for 2 hours on a Saturday morning.
I mean, I've got two small kids. You saw one of them just before this podcast started, but I've got two small children. So my riding here at home is actually limited. I do go out with the guys that are in the club here in this area, but I'm only doing that a few times a year here, and then a couple times a year for me on expedition. But we have a lot more going on than that as an organization. The average guy, it really depends. There's a lot of guys that have families, have young kids, but a lot of guys also as well that are maybe older, retired, kids are out of the house. And so they'll spend a lot more time. There's guys that are going on, we have guys that are going on 3, 4, 5 expeditions a year, plus they're going on member events every weekend or and they're organizing their own and all of that. Mm-hmm. So it's very much a community to tap into based on what capacity you have, whether that's in the physical or very much so just in the digital space. Or if you just need, there's a lot of instances where we have guys that are just saying, hey, I need someone to talk to, and they now have someone that they can call that they know. And that's actually a really big deal for a lot of guys. I think that might be understated. There's a lot of guys out there that are high level players. They're surrounded by a lot of people, but they're not necessarily understood by people that are at their level, holding their same level of responsibility. And so having someone to call that understands you and understands what you're going through is a big deal for a lot of us. Yeah,
because it's already lonely being an entrepreneur. And so doing it male or just having so much on your shoulders and not knowing who to reach out to just quadruple that burden quite a bit. And that's a very dark place you don't want to be in too long before.
Yeah, I would say no matter where you're at in that entrepreneurial journey, it's so important to have at least one person that you can bounce ideas off of, where you can at least commiserate with and say, hey, we're going through this. Well, we both understand what it's like. Yeah.
Let's talk about your morning routine. How do you get up, dress up, and show up? with kids in the picture, I know it changes, but I would like to hear it.
My morning routine has very much evolved over the years. Currently, I've got, like I said, the two small kids. Kids are up every morning at the very latest at 6. We're typically up around 5:30. So I'll get up with the kids. My wife works shift work at the hospital. And so she's usually sleeping either because she just came off a night shift or because she'll be gone in the morning. So she's not there. So I'll always wake up with the kids. And then for me, that's getting the kids ready. I don't know how unique this is, but what I'll do, I gave up coffee years ago. So something that's a little bit unique about my morning routine is I will microdose pre-workout. So instead of taking like a full dose of pre-workout like you would before a full workout, I'll usually do like a quarter dose to stimulate instead of caffeine, just having that. And for me, that's felt a lot cleaner. I don't have there's not a down you get. Like sometimes you'll get with drinking coffee, you hit an afternoon, you're like, oh man, and you just have that crash. So I haven't been having that, and that's nice. And then once I get the kids off to daycare, then if I have the time, I will almost always listen to some kind of business podcast. Business podcasts for me have been instrumental in gains in business and by default life. And so, obviously if you're listening to this, then you're listening to podcasts, but that's been so important to have that as an ongoing piece of my routine. I've been listening to podcasts for well over a decade and what I'll do in that podcast, often what I'll do is I won't finish the podcast. I will listen for that one action piece that I'm like, okay, I can see this having an impact, and I will stop, I'll pause. I'll either make a note or make an event to my calendar, or I will go and actually do the thing right away. So I usually try and keep an hour in the morning before I get into work to listen to that podcast and find an action item that I can go and implement in the business. And, one small thing a day doesn't seem like a lot, but you start compounding that over the years. And I can promise you there's been thousands of things that I've taken from podcasts to implement it, and very much so have a massive impact on success in business.
That explains how it's so instrumental in your success, because you're applying, because knowledge is nothing if you don't apply it. Mm-hmm. And you're actually applying that. That is unique. That's something that I might take on and be able to apply the strategies that is learned. With podcast listening is you're stimulating the mind, right? You're still stimulating the brain, and you're feeding you could, just like you feed your body, you're feeding your mind as well. And because that's important, because we have to keep the mind intact for business decision, for clarity, to help your business grow, but to help you thrive as a person and a family man.
Yeah.
Erik, tell us, where can we connect with you? Where can we find you?
If you're looking at the club in general, then Instagram's not a bad place to look. Freshline Moto Club. If you're looking to just connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Erik Hatterscheidt, which maybe Dr. Leonid, you can, my name will probably be in the podcast notes below this. Is a good place to connect with me there.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I really appreciate having you on the show today.
Thank you. What I will say too, I didn't know when a good opportunity would be to bring this up, but just for your listeners, I really resonate with whoever's listening to this podcast. One of the early things that dug me out of the whole in business. So I know I talked about the guys that mentored me in business, but honestly, one of the early things they said was, here's the general direction. Now you need to go figure it out. And the way I figured that out was through podcasts and listening to that. So I really resonate with the audience you've got here. If you're here, that by default tells me that you are wanting to improve, you're wanting to build something for yourself. So I'd like to offer, if I can, if you're okay with this, I'd like to offer a gift to the listeners. And so before I offer the gift, let me just be clear about who this is for. So we're uniquely positioned within what we do to help men. And I very much resonate with women. I have the most beautiful, amazing wife in the world, but I'm not able to as easily work with the challenges that women face. Obviously I'm a guy. So if there's any male listeners on this podcast who have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders, who are either managing at a high level, or maybe you're running your own company and there's an overwhelming amount of responsibility that you're taking on, and you would like somebody to connect with that has experience taking on a fair amount of responsibility and knowing how to deal with that so that you are not trying to escape it. That's something that, again, I was dealing with for a long time. I was trying to escape the responsibility, keep it, but continue to escape through, in my case, alcohol. It could be through other things. Could be through drugs. Could be through just avoiding family. That's another big one that we often see is guys will go and they'll choose to play golf, or they'll immerse themselves even deeper in work because they're escaping responsibilities in other areas of their life. If you're looking for an opportunity to have incredible relationships and outcomes, first for yourself, but then also within your family, with your kids, with your wife, and then seeing the impact of that on the business, then reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I give the link to you here, Dr. Leonid, and I will make time for you. This is typically something that, honestly, this is something that my higher level members would probably kill me, because this is something they pay a lot of money for. But reach out to me on LinkedIn and I'll set aside at least half an hour for you to just understand where you're at and give you a few tools that have worked for us to give you a mental reframe on where you should set your focus. So yeah, if you're interested in that, reach out to me on LinkedIn and I'll make the time. All right. Thank you, Dr. Leading. Appreciate it. Appreciate you giving me a bit of extra time there to talk about that.
I said, yes, absolutely. And I'll be sure to put that on the show notes and your LinkedIn connection as well, so those interested can reach out to you. Thank you so much for sharing that and coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
All right, morning enthusiasts, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you love the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or Google Play. While you're at it, tell a friend about the show. Be sure to visit bestmorningroutineever.com and our Facebook group to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic free bonus content. Until next time,